Welcome back to Exeter, the podcast designed to help you and your life group put down deeper roots relationally and spiritually. I hope you enjoyed the message this week as we looked forward to the end times and had a little bit of a glimpse at the present. I hope you were encouraged as you examine the idea of the kingdom of God as something that is both a present reality, something that is already here, something that is among us, that grows as we bring people into the kingdom of God, as we bring people to know Christ. It was a reality implemented by Him. But you also consider that the kingdom is a not yet. When Christ comes again at the second coming, the kingdom will change, and it will change in a rather dramatic fashion. And so we hope that gives you both hope for the present as well as for the future. You know, as you discuss your study guide this week, I want to encourage you not to look at this as a sort of like be a good person so you're good enough for God, because that's not what's at play here. But that you would keep in mind that the prospect of a second coming of Christ does a few things for us. On the one hand, it encourages us amidst persecution. When we obey Christ, the world that lives according to an entirely different worldview naturally pushes against that and rejects that. And it results in conflict of some sort. And if it becomes persecution, if it becomes something that is painful or difficult for us, the reminder that Christ is returning can be an incredible encouragement to us. And that's indeed how Paul puts it out for the Thessalonians in 1 Thessalonians. In fact, if you want to read a little bit more, you can back up and read chapter 4 as well, where Paul fleshes out that idea a little bit. So we also understand that the return of Christ tells us and reminds us that it is important that we reach out and bring other people into the kingdom. That just because somebody shares a bed with us or works with us or comes to our church or is a part of our family doesn't necessarily mean that they belong to Christ. And so we look to draw them into a personal relationship with the only one who can save, Jesus Christ. It also reminds us that if we belong to Christ, then our lives ought to reflect it. And if our lives don't reflect it, then perhaps something is off, something is missing. And so if Christ has saved us out of this way of life that was characterized by darkness and death, these sinful, destructive habits that we had, if He's saved us into life, into this brightness, into the light of day where there is no guilt or shame, then our lives ought to reflect that. And it would be foolish for us if the blood of Christ has accomplished a work that has brought me out of death. It would be foolish for me to willingly go back into that. And if I recognize in my own self habits or tendencies to go back to those things, then I fight against those and I strive to overcome those, and I look again to God to build into me this life that He has promised. So as we look forward to what is to come, it encourages us to live in that life that is to come to the degree that we can. It reminds us to bring other people into the kingdom. It gives us hope during persecution, during difficult times. Really the prospect, the idea of Christ's return is something that we ought to keep our eyes on. Not so that we can pick a day or try to figure out exactly what is going to happen, but so that we can be reminded in the here and now what it means to belong to Christ and to await the fullness of life that He has promised. So may that be an encouragement to you. I hope you have a great conversation. And at this point, typically in the podcast, I'd encourage you with a practical way to make your life group more dynamic and life-giving. I'm not going to do that this week. I'm going to ask you to do something else. Actually, what we've been realizing recently is that I don't know how many of you actually use these resources. I don't know if you're listening to the podcast or watching the video. I don't know if you're using the study guide. And because it takes a significant amount of time for me to produce these resources each week, I want to make sure that this is the best use of my time. And so we will be continuing with the podcast and with the study guides at least through May. When we take a break for summer, we'll continue while we work our way through Luke. But at that point, we're going to have to make a decision whether or not I'm going to continue producing these resources again in the fall, whether we'll start back up with them or just push you to some other resources. And so you could help me to make that decision on a more informed basis by letting me know if you use these resources. All you got to do is shoot me an email, andy@bethelnp.org. It's ANDY@bethelnp, as in northplatte.org. Just send me an email. It doesn't have to be fancy. Just say, yes, we use the resources. we appreciate them. So if you use these resources, please let me know so that we can continue to produce them. Thanks for your cooperation in this. Thanks for going out of your way for a few minutes and doing it right now without delay. And I will see you again back here next week with some more Extra Dirt.